Now bring in the CEO of the South African Water Chamber, Benoit Le Roy. He joins us now via video link to weigh in Hammanskraal water challenges. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So the water issues, as we've heard in that clip, particularly in Hammanskraal, are wide-ranging and have been going on for some years now. In the main, the issues seem to be attributed to the Rooiwal water waste treatment plant. When and how can this crisis be stabilized, do you think?
Good afternoon to you and the viewers, and what's a good summer afternoon. Yes, I watched the clip. I think the three components, principal ones, is we mustn't just focus on the Rooiwal sewage works because that's a source of pollution. There's also the water treatment works that abstracts from the same water resource that's being rebuilt with the help of Magali's water. But then there's the real issue is the water distribution system. So it's all three that need to be brought into focus because fixing the one doesn't fix the other two. But I think this is a microcosm of what we have in South Africa. The issues they have took 20, 30 years to get there, and we're not going to sort it out in a year, as the mayor is quite, and he doesn't want to raise expectations unnecessarily, but the poor folk, want their water. So we have to look at this in a 360 angle and not a 90-degree angle. So it's a little bit more than what I think is being said. But, one doesn't want to complicate things with society. But the three components are the blue, green and no drop, and all three are dysfunctional in Hammanskraal and in South Africa.
And I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the reports. I'm going to come back to them a little bit later on because we know, of course, they were reintroduced by the former Minister of Water. But just given the historical challenges that we know, especially in Hammanskraal, is it feasible, just listening to those officials who are now reassuring residents that they will access clean tap water soon? I mean, the possibilities, as you also rightfully say, are long term. But in the interim, what needs to happen? Because we have been here so many times as journalists and, of course, the people in Hammanskraal also calling out to us and bringing this attention to us so many times now. And what we are currently seeing is that they are now confined to drinking water from tankers.
Yeah, so firstly, the Rooiwal sewage works has been dysfunctional for many years for a whole lot of reasons, and that's acknowledged, and they're busy working on it. And the question is that the focus in today's briefing to stop polluting the water resource? So it has to be done. Okay, having done that doesn't sort out the other two. The next one is the water treatment works that Magali's Water is helping through National Department of Water Sanitation to get the private sector to rebuild what they're calling a package plant. So it's more mobile, it's quicker to deploy. That will now take clean water, clean treated water, which is a mix of rainfall, borehole, and treated sewage, and we'll then put that through that treatment plant. But now that plant has to deliver it to a system that leaks 40 to 50% in South Africa. And Tshwane is at the bottom of the pile with Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. So, the systems are completely decrepit. We call it leaking bucket syndrome. How is that being addressed? That's the third thing. And until we package these three together, unfortunately, we only have a third of the picture today. We need the other 2/3. It would be remiss and unprofessional of me not to mention that. And we need to see what's being done there. And unfortunately, in the briefings, that wasn't raised. But I'm sure that will be brought to attention as to be raised now, because this is why we have summer consumption the whole of this winter in the three Gauteng metros, despite the consumer demand being down, but the system is leaking. So it's no use putting new clean water into a system that just leaks. We have to address that. And that system is 50 to 75 years old. It's not designed to last that long. So I'd hate that to be the fall of the government, because it didn't address those issues that are really quite patent. They're not latent anymore. And we need to bring that to the fore.
So, as I said earlier, the former Minister Mkhunu, reintroduced the green drop and the blue drop reports. Just help us understand the importance of these reports. Also, of course, in the context of South Africa as a, water constrained economy.
Look, it's really good news that the minister did this, because we kept in the bottom drawer because it was bad news and it was political suicide to publish them. And he had the temerity and the professionalism to put it onto the table so that we know where we're at. So I think that was really great. So the green drop is really the condition of the sewage treatment plants that, apart from the coast, discharge sewage into our water resources, our lakes and rivers, that we reuse for food production, irrigation, industry and other towns downstream. 97% of government sewage works don't comply. That is a red herring of absolute importance, that we don't have plants that are built to treat this at the moment. The technology exists, but we weren't designed for that. So that's the first one, green drop. Blue drop is what is in the distribution systems in the municipalities, so in the reservoirs, etc. And that's the quality of the water and the quality of the systems and the operational side. And roughly a third are in dire straits, the other third are about to fall over. So it's a very, very dire situation. So more than 50% of our water treatment works, not by volume, number of works, is in actual fact insecure. So that's a huge, huge problem. The third one is the no drop, where it doesn't matter what quality water we put in, we leak up to 40-50% of it, double what the rest of the world does, purely because we haven't looked after these assets. So it's a very complicated storm, but there's also another thing we need to bring into consideration. We saw in the previous clip, is that with climate change, we are getting the same amount of rain, but in a shorter period of time. It's more destructive. Our systems are not only in good standing, they are not designed for the vagaries of climate change. So we really need to put the best money, the best resources into this. We can't do things we did them 20 years ago with climate change and rapid urbanization. So we've got to up our game, and unfortunately the signs are not there. We acknowledge we have a problem, but we are not actually addressing the issue yet.
And I would imagine resources in the form of funding are also needed in, as you say, climate change, which also probably increases demand, but also in the decaying infrastructure that we keep hearing about.
Yes, and look, the good news is that the private sector has been mobilized in other what we call network industries like energy, and we've seen 6 to 7 gigawatts of new energy brought in by the private sector of the last year. That has actually allowed Eskom to repair, do better long-term repairs to its generation fleet. There's quite a lot of money in the private sector globally. But what they do need is security that their loans will be repaid. And unfortunately, outside of, I'm talking metro-wise, outside of the Western Cape, those cash flows are not secure at the moment. There are solutions to this. We call it the digital toolbox. It's being rolled out globally, which is to try and help smoothen the governance process, make sure that cash flows are ring-fenced, and that way the private sector can participate more than it used to, because everybody needs water, needs it long-term, so it's a sure bet. It's very good investment for pension funds. We just have to make sure that the money does go to the right places, and the investment returns go back to the right places. And that's where the digital economy is also coming in and being able to help us. And in South Africa, the whole is actually over R1 trillion in water infrastructure at the moment. It was 900 billion in 2018 in the master plan. It has increased. It is increasing because we're not addressing it. So it's a substantial amount of money, but it shouldn't raise the price of the commodity, because these are very long-term investments and the private sector is able to lend it very competitively.
Benoit, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time and unpacking all of that for us. Of course, the CEO of the South African Water Chamber, Benoit Le Roy.